Hi, I'm Kim Skildum-Reid from Power Sponsorship in Sydney, Australia. Now, I recently did a video about the 8 traits of a great corporate sponsorship manager. This is the other side. These are the 8 toxic traits that you don't want in your corporate sponsorship manager. So let's just get straight into it. Now, the first one is the empire builder. Now, this is somebody that's really trying to make themselves indispensable. You know, sponsorship is sexy. It's a sexy portfolio. They know it. They seek a lot of control, often working around the chain of command, so nobody knows what they're up to. So they just skip their manager and go to the manager's manager so that none of their peers actually understand what's going on. The way that they run it is kind of obfuscating the strategies and everything that go into it. You know, it's all about sponsorship being super complex, and it would be nowhere without their amazing expertise. So again, they position themselves as being indispensable. This blocks collaboration and stakeholder buy-in, severely limiting results. I mean, getting buy-in from cross-departmental stakeholders is incredibly important to the success of sponsorship. And if this person is basically saying sponsorship's too complicated for anybody else, I'm the only one that's got all the skills to deal with this, nobody's going to want to work with that person. So is it fixable? Maybe. But that depends on whether you can stop them being a total control freak and learn to start collaborating well with others. Now, that's iffy. Some people are just control freaks by nature and empire builders by nature, and other ones can learn to let go. You're going to need to figure that one out yourself. Now, the second trait is a solo act. This is a little bit like the empire builder in that there's a lack of buy-in and collaboration, but the big difference is that it's not their choice. It's either due to one of two things. The first one is there's a lack of organizational vision around sponsorship. That is, sponsorship is in its own little tiny little box and doesn't have anything to do with sales or HR or socials or new product marketing or loyalty marketing or any of those other things. And so the other stakeholders don't understand it. They don't see where they could use sponsorship. They don't have that vision. So they just don't participate, leaving the manager to try to get results on their own. And that's not great. Sponsorship is not something that survives well in a vacuum. The other reason why you get a solo act is that you put in somebody too junior or too admin focused in the role. So they don't get any respect or interest in collaborating from cross-departmental stakeholders. They just don't see this junior or admin-y type person as a peer. And that is really, really detrimental. So that lack of integration, either way, limits the impact. Now, is this fixable? Yes, it's absolutely fixable. Organizationally, you know, buy-in can be fixed with some education and some vision building. But you still may need to change out that person that's the sponsorship manager if they're too junior or too admin focused. You may need to hire somebody above them to be the actual sponsorship manager and give them more skills and more experience and all of that in a more junior position that they can then elevate back into a sponsorship manager position eventually. Now, the next one we want to talk about is being a bully, or what I like to call a sponzilla. Now, a bully or a sponzilla is adversarial in nature. They're like really in it for the thrill of the kill. They treat sponsorship as win-lose instead of win-win-win. So they're in it for the company wins, the sponsor wins, and the rights holder loses. And that's not great, because best practice sponsorship is win-win-win. That is, you win, you the sponsor win, the rights holder wins, and the fans win. And if anybody loses, everybody loses. So you don't want somebody that's in there trying to absolutely screw down the rights holder and bully them because they can, because that will actually poison the whole sponsorship and fans will feel it. It's just not going to work. So is this a real short-term behavior, like, woohoo, gotta win, yay, yay for me, but it creates really long-term harm. So is it fixable? I don't know. It's unlikely. I don't know. I don't think you can fix a sponzilla. If somebody's in it for the thrill of the kill, that's something that may work in other kind of roles, but it's not a great one for sponsorship when collaboration and mutuality and really partnership orientation is so important to getting results. Then there's the inflexible sponsorship manager, where they have fixed ideas on what should and shouldn't be sponsored, how they should be sponsored. So they might say, we only sponsor national organizations, or we only take naming rights, or we only sponsor in major cities. I mean, they have all of these really fixed ideas of what should and shouldn't be sponsored. Now, your sponsorship policy probably has some guide rails, but it should also leave you very flexible to do things that are really meaningful for your target markets, whoever they may be and whatever they may be interested in. So being really inflexible isn't helping anything. So they're putting arbitrary limitations on your portfolio, and that might be just losing you a lot of opportunities. So is it fixable? Probably. But it probably requires some education and also expanding their vision for what is possible with sponsorship and how you can use, an art sponsorship to drive sales, or a sports sponsorship to engender grassroots advocacy. And so like really understanding all of the intricacies of how you can use sponsorships in lots and lots of different ways, and different sponsorships in lots of ways. Now, the next one is a foot soldier, and this is a person that's extremely admin focused. They're just really focused on the admin of sponsorship, dealing with the tickets and dealing with the hospitality and dealing with the logistics of getting the signage out and, the umbrellas with the logos on it and all of those kind of things. They're not focused on strategy. This is similar to the solo act, but really they act as a deployment role instead of leadership, and they organize themselves around such low-level tasks that need to be done, but they organize themselves around these low-level tasks and managing these low-level tasks rather than strategy. So is this fixable? Yeah, it's fixable. I would suggest, in the way that I like to structure sponsorship teams in organizations that have sponsorship teams, is that there's a sponsorship manager, you might have a couple of sponsorship specialists, and then you have a sponsorship admin. And the sponsorship admin's job is to deal with the tickets, the logistics, the hospitality, et cetera, wrangling all of that for the sponsorship portfolio. That's a big job. It's an important job. It requires somebody that is incredibly detail-oriented and loves that kind of admin. So shove that all onto that person so everybody else can concentrate on the strategic parts of sponsorship, the results-oriented part of sponsorship. Now, if you're running leaner, like you only have one person and they're mainly doing admin, that's not great. What you want to do then is you want to put more of the admin stuff on the departments that are using it. So for instance, if your sales department and your sales managers and all of that kind of stuff are using a lot of the hospitality, let them manage the hospitality and that kind of ticketing. If you've got a promotional department that does media promotions and all of that, then give them the tickets. Like just give them the tickets to manage the tickets. And so most of that can get offloaded onto the departments that are actually leveraging using those benefits. Not all of it, but most of it. But if you can, get a sponsorship admin. Believe me, that will be like a godsend. The next one is a bureaucrat. Like sponsorship is a real balance between analysis and creativity, and you really either need to have that all in the one person or across the whole team, so people will have their strengths and negatives. So somebody that over-processes sponsorship decisions, it's a real red flag. A red flag is something like, they want to implement an online sponsorship application form. Now there's 200 different reasons why you don't want to do that, but I've written a separate blog on that. I'm going to link to that in the video description. But, that's just adding a layer of bureaucracy that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the rights holder, but it doesn't help you either. Another red flag would be they want to use a scorecard to make decisions on what to sponsor and what not to. And again, that's something I really don't recommend. It's putting a layer of bureaucracy into something where if you just ask the right questions in the right order, you'll get the answer. So creativity and meaning just get buried under all these rules, and it's just not great for sponsorship. So is it fixable? Probably, probably with some training, particularly on the critical component of creativity and processes that don't like strangle the life out of your sponsorship results. Another one is the ghost. The ghost loves the fun parts of sponsorship. You know, you get tickets to go to cool things, you get to meet athletes and yada yada, lots of selfies and all this kind of stuff. They love the fun parts, but they just don't like the boring parts, and they frankly just don't do them. They don't manage those small rats and mice sponsorships that you have too many of. They don't like dealing with proposals, so they just let them stack up in the inbox until, you know, all of those events have already happened. And it's just, there are those admin parts of the job, and they just don't do them. Either they just don't do them, and they don't fix them either. Now, they might say it's impractical to do that stuff, but then they don't do anything to fix the problem. But is this fixable? Well, it depends on whether you can give them the impetus to stop ignoring the bad stuff and fix it. And there are ways to fix it. If they're getting too many sponsorship proposals, you should have a set of sponsorship guidelines. That'll get you fewer proposals that are way, way better, and all of a sudden that workload drops like a stone. So there are ways and means to fix these problems that often get ignored, like people being ghosted and jobs being ghosted, but they actually have to be willing to learn the tricks of the trade to fix those problems. Now, the final one is the hedonist. And there's actually a guy I know of in the industry who goes by the nickname, or used to go by the nickname, Sir Lunch-a-Lot, because he just got taken to lunch by everybody. Got taken to lunch by everybody, got flown around the world by everybody, all these, you know, major, huge sporting organizations, and basically had this amazing life with their Insta on fire of all the places they've gone, all the people that they met, and all of that kind of stuff. They phone it in on strategy and leverage and measurement and everything else. Now, is this fixable? I mean, in theory, it's fixable, but they don't want it to change. Like, this is like, all their friends are completely jealous of them because they just have this amazing, enviable life. But it's not helping your brand or your company if they're just in this job for the perks and not actually doing the job. So is this fixable? I don't know. In theory, but if I had to guess whether you were going to be able to fix this, I'd say, you know what? Probably not. Probably not. This is probably, if you've got a hedonist, it's probably not the right person to be running your whole sponsorship strategy. So what I want you to do is audit your sponsorship team for any of these traits and plan some corrective action. Or if you are a sponsorship manager, maybe you even see some traits in yourself that you could address and fix to do a better job at what you're doing. So please like, subscribe, and comment with which toxic traits you've come across and whether or how they were addressed. Or maybe I've missed a toxic trait. Is there one that I've missed? Tell me about it. Now, if you want a deeper dive, more information on this, there's a link in the video description. But there's lots more resources. My website, powersponsorship.com, is an absolute motherlode of great resources, blogs, white papers, templates, videos, everything. So links to all of that kind of stuff in my website are below, as well as additional resources that I've referenced and where you can find me on socials. And finally, if you're interested in working with me, there's some information on how to work with me below as well. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you next time.